Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for jumping in and joining for our Direct to Phase 2 Strategies to Win webinar. I'm Joey Aurora, the managing partner here at the Outpost, and I wanted to talk through some amazing strategies of what you can do for your Direct to Phase 2 today. I'm going to go over a quick background of myself and who we are. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Direct to Phase 2 and how it's being put together, and we'll dive into some strategies to win here today as well. The Q&A is up and running. So if you have any questions, please jump into the Q&A at any point. Feel free to ask your question. The goal for today's webinar is to be a quick 25 minutes, and then we'll have time for Q&A as well. So it'll be an awesome way to dive in. I hope that if you're here, that you have at least a little bit of a background and understanding of what the SBIR program is and the open topic direct to phase 2 process. So excited to have everyone here. Thanks for jumping in and making some time today. All right, strategies to win. But first, you may be wondering, why us? Why are we talking about this? And why is the Outpost putting on this webinar? Well, we're a team of folks that had helped start AFWorks. I was there from the early days and helped create the open topic process, helped create the direct to phase 2 process. And we're still super passionate about that original reason we started this mission, which was to get tech to the warfighter quicker and make sure that we can get the right tech in our nation's hands so government can better serve its citizens and defend our country. And so here at the Outpost now on the private sector, we get to continue that mission and take the expertise, take the background of being in acquisitions, of building these programs, of building the evaluation criteria, and really deciphering what that looks like for everyone that's out there. And we get to help companies go from 0 to 30 million plus in the government space. I've helped multiple companies win StratFi awards. We have helped companies raise money. We help companies get connected to agencies all across the government space. And it's our role to help be that facilitator in getting companies connected into winning inside the government. So we've helped all across the Air Force, all across the Department of Defense. We've done work with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Homeland Security, the National Science Foundation. So if you're looking to help get a government contract, we know how to do it. That's part of why we put on these webinars, is because we have that deep expertise amongst our team. People who are prior contracting officers, people who built these programs, people who are going out and executing today. And now we've brought that together to make a rock solid team for you guys. All right. So you might be wondering, like, hey, what is the open topic, and why is it direct to phase 2, and what are they focusing on? The entire intent and goal behind the direct to phase 2 program was to drive a dual use approach to getting new tech in the door. And the open topic dual use program is specifically built around how are we taking technology that already exists out there and doing more applied research and development on those technologies. And it's wanting to provide a single front door across the entire Air Force and Space Force to say, how can we get prototype projects moving and create an entire pathway that's repeatable and scalable. So you might be wondering, like, hey, I also know that there's specific topic direct to phase 2s out there. You might be seeing that there are some additional background on, like, hey, there's pre-release information for DARPA, for the Air Force on specific topics. Why am I considering the open topic? Well, the great thing about the open topic is you get to pick what the project is with the stakeholder that you're working with. And so that's one of the best and most powerful things here about the open topic process is if you're here, you're looking at this submission, it's up to $1.25 million for a 21-month project to go out and prototype what is in the art of possible. And so this is a great chance to really dive into creating a project that's going to solve an Air Force problem. The current window for the direct to phase 2 closes on May 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern. So we are a little more than 2 weeks away from submission timeline. So if you might be wondering, like, well, how often does this happen each year? It happens twice a year. So we are here for the spring direct to phase 2 timeline, and that's closes here in May. And then the next direct to phase 2 timeline will be in October, November. So what you might want to be expecting for this round. Like, hey, how many get selected? What does that look like? The government has said that they want to do about 70 to 110 direct to phase two awards for this round. And the intent behind that is to build on a path for success for these companies, but also make sure that, hey, there's enough projects that are going out there that are tied to the customer needs and end user needs. It's a $1.25 million award, or there's a customer memo that's required, and only one submission is allowed per company. And that includes if you're trying to go for a Space Force submission or an Air Force submission, it still falls under one topic. So the Air Force has said that it can only do one submission, regardless of if you pick either service. So like, what goes into a proposal package? So, we've covered a lot of information already, and I'm just trying to speed through some of this so we can really spend some time talking through the evaluation criteria and really more of the strategies to win here. The open topic proposal has all of these different requirements to be submitted, right? There's 6 different volumes you have to submit, and you have to get your basic information right. There's a 15-page technical paper here, and this is really going to be a meat of a lot of your proposal of what are you doing, what are you proposing, what are your milestones, what does all of that look like. Then you have your cost volume. You have to talk through some of the commercialization program pieces. And then the other big piece will be here in volume 5 is this will be where you upload your customer memorandum. And that really defines your defense need and is a requirement for the open topic direct to phase 2 proposals. And you have volume 6 where we're talking about your fraud, waste, and abuse training. So really volume 1, 3, 4, and 6 are going to be a lot of the administrative pieces, and that need to be part of submitting into DSIP, the submission portal. Volume 3, the costs will be tied a lot to your technical proposal as well. And so as you build out your milestones and you define your costs and who the people are aligned against that. If you have any questions on sort of the requirements for an open topic direct to phase 2 submission, please go ahead and throw those in chat, or sorry, in Q&A. As we talk through the customer memorandum, right, we highlighted that a couple of times on the last slide. What is this for? Why does it exist? The intent behind the customer memorandum is to clearly identify and document and communicate, hey, what is the Air Force wanting? And why do they care about your technology, product, or service in particular? And this allows for both Air Force end users, someone who's going to use this on a day-to-day basis, to say, hey, this piece of software is going to help me achieve my job 10% faster, or it's going to allow me to get visibility into 100 different things that I didn't have the ability to do before. And so these are the people that are on the front line actively utilizing that technology to accomplish the mission that you're trying to do. And then you also have the customers here, and the customer is going to be someone that says, hey, this is important. This is a problem we want to solve. And your customer is going to be paying for the project long-term. They're the ones saying, hey, this is something that's of interest to us. If you go out and prototype this using the SBIR funds, we might want to buy this long-term. And so your customer memo must include a specific Department of the Air Force end user, a customer, and a technical point of contact. The technical point of contact is really going to be the point person for who is going to be doing a lot of the communication, signing off on the deliverables. And that technical point of contact can be either in the customer organization or the end user organization, and it can be one of those two people. The signatories required for your customer memo are both a customer and an end user, and they need to be they can be in the same organization, and you need to have at least one signature from each. So Megan, I see your question came in here that you need 2 customer signatures. The document has a space for 1 customer signature and 1 end user signature. So as you're looking at this, that it'll be 1 end user, 1 customer, and then you're going to have your TPOC as well. And the TPOC could be one of those other 2 or a third person. The other intent behind the customer memorandum is to define the milestones that you are working on with your Air Force or Space Force stakeholders. And it allows you to communicate back and forth with these government stakeholders and say, this is what we want to do in our prototype project. This is what we're hoping to accomplish. And it allows for the government stakeholders to sign off on that and say, yes, this is something that we're interested in. And a lot of questions come up of like, hey, is this a document that has to go through legal review? Is this something that I'm officially sponsoring a company? And the answer is it goes through legal review if it determines it is needed to at the local level, but it is not something that is necessarily required. This is a opportunity for a customer and a user to submit to a potential funding process, and it doesn't obligate the government to any sources of funding. This is a expression of interest in partnering with a company here. And so the Air Force has created the customer memo template. The link is here to the memorandum. This is in general what it looks like. This webinar today is not going to be an MOU focused webinar, but I wanted to highlight for you that you have to be using the latest version of this MOU. So one of the things that catches a lot of people off guard is if they've submitted direct to phase 2 proposals before, they're like, well, hey, I'm going to reuse that MOU again. Well, you have to get signatures again for your memorandum of understanding, because the intent behind the MOU is updated at each round and each cycle. So you want to check that out. And Kimberly, you're asking like, hey, can we provide the link? Yes, we will. And we will also, Gunther, you're asking if we can provide the slides. Yes, we will. You'll be getting all of that in the follow-up email post this webinar. So thank you for answering and asking those questions. All right. If you have any other specific questions on MOU, it's something that we can go through after this. Just a reminder, you do need the latest and greatest version of the MOU for each round. Some of you might also be wondering, like, hey, when we said 70 to 110 proposals are being selected, what else happens, right? So there's a status called selectable, not funded. And the reason that this status exists is that you're going through a source selection process and you're doing a competitive bid process here. Right? So what this status allows is that if the Department of the Air Force SBIR program doesn't have money to fund every single proposal, then they're saying that there's a cut line of proposals that are technically good enough, but didn't receive funding. And this means that you can then take that to other stakeholders across the entirety of the federal government, actually, and see if they're willing to transfer that contract over and fund that contract there. So it allows you to say, if you have other matching funds that you're trying to pull to the table and your proposal was not funded, it was selected but not funded, then you can go get that proposal funded for further opportunities. What this allows you to do is, if there's matching funds that are brought in, it allows you to have a contract pathway to go down versus having to compete for it again. But the unique thing is, right, people are like, hey, I've never heard of a selectable not funded get funded. I'll provide some counter narrative to that. We've helped over 6 different companies get selectable not funded funded through the relationships with the stakeholders that we're able to help drive. All right, now for the fun and meat of our conversation today. We're going to dive into the evaluation criteria for the open topic. And the first one we're going to talk about is the commercialization potential. So what I want you to do is really pay attention here to what the government is saying, right? I'm going to read this out to you. The potential for government or private sector commercialization and benefits expected to accrue from commercialization. Well, what does that mean? The solicitation specifically breaks down these evaluation criteria into these 5 sub factors here. So you want to be sure that as you are writing your proposal and you're in the commercialization section, that you're answering specifically each of these questions. And you want to be precise about your answers. And you have to remember that you can make this submission proprietary if you want to. So make sure you're including specific numbers on your traction, on who your customers are. You want to be clear about this. You don't want to be holding any of this information back, because this is what you're being evaluated on. And if you are going to share this information, You want to be competitive in a manner that says, hey, we already have $5 million in commercial revenue. These are all of our commercial customers. And then this is how we're planning on growing in the defense space, right? We've identified XYZ stakeholders as people to develop the product with. And then if we further develop and prototype this project, this will actually open up further market opportunities for us in the commercial space. Because going back to what the intent here behind the direct to phase 2 process is to do more applied research and development, take commercial technologies that are already out there and apply them to the Department of Air Force problem sets. And if you can show that, hey, if we work to solve this problem, adapt our commercial technology to do so, then it'll actually further open up a commercial market for us here. So you want to be very clear and concise and precise on each of these answers. And a big thing here is also the transition strategy in your customer memorandum can also be a part of your commercialization potential, right? So if you have a government stakeholder that already has a funding lined up for a future capability here and they're willing to spend it on this pending that it's successful, then you can say, yeah, like, hey, we are going to transition and commercialize this technology either regardless of if we get this proposal or not. And the other thing to note about this is commercialization in this sense is not only just the commercialization of your technology to like, hey, I want to keep going and selling to the private sector. Commercialization as it's evaluated here is also about how are you selling into the government stakeholder space as well. And then, Gunter, you asked, hey, how important is it to have a dual use product? I would say it's extremely important. The solicitation is specifically focused on dual use technologies, and it's about highlighting how there is you're leveraging the commercial growth and engagement. That doesn't mean that people have gone through this process and they've gotten funded technologies that are defense only. There's been a weapons company I've known and worked with that has gone through this process, been successful, getting things funded, and those are not commercial grade weapons, right? These are military weapons that they're building and talking about here. So when we're going through this, you have to make sure, like, hey, if there could be a commercial equivalent, then we need to be able to justify and be clear on why you aren't going and building that direction as well, or what your plan is to tackle that market. And that should be something that you're talking about here in the size of the market and the clarity of the business plan. All right. The second evaluation criteria is the defense need. So this is where your customer memorandum is a huge part of what you're trying to communicate. It's the ability to clearly communicate what the defense organization needs. What is the end user going to be utilizing this technology for? What is the actual use case on a day-to-day basis? How specific are you about that? It is also about the long-term use case, right? It isn't just about what could they use it for today, but how is this going to affect the order of battle that the military cares about? How is this going to impact future operations? What is the sustainment cost? These are things you want to be clear about and identify as you're going through the customer memorandum process. And you also want to be clear on the funding pieces of why this is the right customer. Are they already funding this kind of operational capability? Are they getting funded in the future for this kind of capability? What is happening in that process and how are you addressing it for them? This is where you are being evaluated for your customer memo as well, right? You need those 3 different signatures, and that's a part of your defense needs score. You want to be clear about how the effort ties into the long-term operational imperatives for the Air Force, and have there been clear needs, right? So if you're looking at up-leveling your game here, some of the things you can do are tie into public statements and public messaging that are going on about the operational needs and capability gaps that exist. The other thing you want to talk about is the level of impact that this is having. So if you were going to impact 100 airmen, or you're going to impact every single airman and guardian across the entire Air and Space Force, what is that pathway? How quickly or urgently do we need that capability? And what does that look like? You need to be able to communicate what that is. And then you also want to talk about the breadth of the applicability. So is it Is this going to be one specific use case, one specific type of aircraft, or are you going to be able to apply and work across maybe all different airframes? Is this a piece of software that is going to improve flight planning for all aircraft, or is this going to only help with the trainer aircraft? You want to be clear about that, or sort of where it could go in the future as well. You want to talk through that point and tie that back here to your commercialization section, because as you talk through like what your actual market size is and what your business plan to go tackle that is, that's tied in here to your defense need and where you're pulling funding through. For sort of an advanced look into this topic, which we can do at a later time, I'd also say talk through some of where the funding is coming from, the program element codes, how it's getting funding, where you fit into the requirements process. Those are things to think about. The last big evaluation criteria that I would take a look at, and as part of the evaluation for the direct to phase 2, is the technical approach. You want to be sure that you are clear on the problem statement, the technical approach, what is the technical merit, and then what is different about this technology, what's driving the innovation here, right? Are you creating time travel? Is that technically feasible? Is that something that is needed today? Or are you creating something that is like, hey, we're creating a new type of runway surface, and that runway surface has just as much traction as traditional pavement does today, but it is resistant to rubber buildup, so that rubber doesn't build up when the airplane lands, which means that we can extend the life of runway pavement by 10 years, right? So that's something that you like, how can you do that? What is the special formula of your pavement that you're building on? And show that you have the actual scientific work behind that. Have you prototyped? Have you done this anywhere else, right? Are there cars that are driving on your pavement today? Are you using this in any other airport or actual real life situation that is equivalent to what you want to use it for in the military? And then you want to also talk about how this is different than what other people are doing today. You also want to be able to address some of the costs in this case, right? If you have a new type of airfield pavement, then how is that different than commercial costs are today? And the other key thing that you want to do for this technical approach piece is you want to make sure that you are highlighting who's on the team and why are they the right people to go and help with this project, right? Are you a scientist that has a background in pavement and has a background in engineering? Or are you somebody that is coming from the business side and you understand the business use cases behind this? What is the team comprised of, and who are those people? That's something you want to take a look at and want to be clear about those skill sets as part of the team in both your 15-page narrative and included in the appendix of your document as well. All right, so common mistakes. You want to make sure that you're addressing the solicitation requirements, specifically the evaluation criteria. That's what we spent the majority of our conversation on today. And we talked through different ways to address that. You also want to be clear about the benefit to the government customer. You want to make sure that your milestones are lining up. Pull this from the feedback that AFWERX has provided, right? There's sometimes inconsistency in what your MOU is versus what you're proposing. And so you need to be clear about that as well. And then you want to make sure that the right type of money is being used for the right type of effort. Here we are going after applied research and development. So this is not a place just to buy licenses if they're not associated with the research and development effort. Some other tips and tricks for your proposal. You want to be very clear about the research and development and test and evaluation aspects of your proposal. You want to be very specific in what you're doing to advance the state of the art. Again, going back to getting the right signatures on your MOUs. You want to have a technical point of contact that's super bought in and cares about this project and the future of it. Both that you want to have that either at the end user or at the customer level, and you want to have them talking about this. And we talked a little bit about number 4 in the MOU one. I want to reiterate it, that you want to be talking about success in numbers for what you're up to. And then you want to tell real stories about how this can be applied in the Department of Defense. You want to be specific about it. Don't give broad brushstrokes. Be very precise in your examples. And if you can give real life examples, that would be great as well. So if you have any questions, we have an amazing team here at the Outpost. We've helped build these programs. We've helped evaluated over 2,000 proposals. We've submitted and won hundreds of proposals as a team. And our goal here is to help you win as a company. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to go through the Q&A right now. If you are looking for help in your direct to phase 2 process, please feel free to reach out, and we're here to help and be a part of that. All right, for our next 2 questions are from Anonymous. What a company co-investment in the SBIR project improve the potential for award? Anonymous, when I hear company co-investment, what I'm hearing is that you're going to submit and push for internal research and development funding. So this is not an external investment or an external signal. This is about hey, we're going to put our own dollars towards this. I think that definitely helps as you're being clear about what your business plan is and saying this is why we're wanting to submit, and this is where our money is, right? And it's how it's going to help our company grow. If we got the SBIR funding, then this is the money would accelerate our business plan. So being able to clearly tie that story and narrative together would be really helpful here. Do you have to fill out the entire list of measurable goals? Does it hurt you to not have it fully filled out? There's not a requirement to fully fill out the measurable goals. If you do fill them out, be precise and clear about them. I encourage you to have them all filled out. All right. Any advice to position a select not funded when you're resubmitting to this? Take a look at your evaluation criteria, right? There's 3 different criteria. If you didn't score excellent in all 3 of them, then that's where I would focus on what has changed. And then I would tie it more into sort of the defense need piece, right? There's more clarity around what that use case is, why it's there, or if you're, I'd have to know your evaluation criteria scores to be able to help that. So if you want to reach out after this, I'm happy to help answer that question and dive in a little bit deeper with you. How accurate do you need to be with your post phase 2 funding requirements? So you need to, you don't necessarily need to know right away, right? This is a prototype project that we're looking to build off of. But you want to be clear with those government stakeholders on what this would cost in the future, so they can also plan and budget for those things as well. Mentioned how 110 might be granted. How many submissions are usually submitted in the direct to phase 2? Kimberly, it's a great question. There's about 400 to 600. It really depends on the round. Can a foreign entity submit direct to phase 3 through its U.S. citizen majority company? This is a more complex question that I'm happy to take offline. So is the U.S. citizen majority company, is that the majority owner? Is it licensing that technology? There's some ways to work through this, and it's best to talk through that with a lawyer as well. I'm happy to dive in a little bit deeper with you afterwards, as there's nuances there in that answer. We got a lot of anonymous questions. So if there's anyone that wants to jump in and ask questions named first, I'm happy to answer those, and then I'll go through the anonymous ones. We got about another minute left here today. The slides will be available, and we'll be posting this recording as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now or shoot me a message. There's my number and email on the slide behind us as well. So we got another one from Anonymous. We have an AFWERX phase 1 that is different than what we're proposing for a direct to phase 2. How do we make it clear that it's different? I would be very precise in what's the R&D you're doing for this project. And, do you have any others in the proposal? It's asking, do you have any other contracts for similar work? And you can answer that by clearly delineating what you're doing differently in this case. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate the kind words. You submitted for the last round for phase 1, but not selected. We were not provided feedback. How do we know where to focus? So you should have gotten feedback. That is something that I would reach out to the contracting team about. You can get your feedback form from the same place that you got the selected, not selected letter as well. So you should definitely get that to reply. What's the balance between quantifiable and qualitative aspects when writing measurable goals? That is a great question. I think the measurable goals here are meant to be specific. So you want to be as quantifiable as possible in this process because this is meant to be a research and development project. So you need to have very clear outcomes that you're driving towards here. Do we still have bandwidth to support for this round of current submissions? We might, depends on where you're at. Feel free to give me a ring later today and we can chat a little bit about it. Would want to walk through working together before the end of the day. Gunter, thanks for your kind words. And Aaron, thank you as well. I appreciate it. And we are excited to continue working together and building. If you have any questions, happy to help. We're here and trying to drive success forward for helping more companies transition. So we appreciate it all. All right, team. I really appreciate the questions today. Thanks for jumping on and excited to continue working together with everyone. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Looking forward to chatting and working with you all soon. Thanks.